Excuse me?
We're going to redevelopment.
Yes, I was just about to say that.
Oh,
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Tuesday, June 23rd, 2009 meeting of the Glendale Redevelopment Agency.
thank
Mr.
you.
City Clerk, could you call the roll, please?
Agency members: Friedman,
Here.
Najarian,
Here.
Quintero, here, Weaver,
Here.
Chairman Draymond.
Here. And could we hear your report, please?
The agenda for the June 23rd, 2009 regular meeting of the Glendale Redevelopment Agency was posted on Thursday, June 18, 2009 on the bulletin board outside City Hall.
Okay, thank you very much. And could we move on to the next item?
Next item would be approval of minutes.
We have a motion.
So moved.
Second.
The motion is second, and minutes will be approved as presented. Our next item.
Next item is oral communications. Discussion is limited time. Is not part of this agenda. Each speaker is allowed 5 minutes. Members of the redevelopment agency may question or respond to a speaker, but there will be no debate or decision, and the matter may be referred to staff through the executive director for an investigation and report.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kasakian. We have one speaker. It's Herbert Milano.
Thank you very much. My name is Herbert Milano. I want to address this joint meeting with regard to the.
Mr. Milano, this isn't a joint. This isn't the joint meeting.
Oh, this is not.
No,
Oh,
that's
all
coming
right.
up.
This is just redevelopment.
If it were
All right.
joint, my colleague, the mayor, would be.
Oh, would
chairing the
be
meeting.
in charge. Thank you. This past Sunday, I went to take a look at the cultural programs that are held in Pasadena. This is a cultural program that was throughout Pasadena in their efforts to bring in public from the metropolitan Los Angeles area at large into Pasadena in order to enhance their economic vitality. When I looked them up on the web, I think I found close to 12 different venues with music and art and music of every kind. My family and I decided to go to the Memorial Park that has the amphitheater, and from about 1 in the afternoon till about 8, a continuation of truly first-rate musical groups of every genre. Before each one of the presentations, there was an encouragement to the public to go to the and visit and have dining and entertain themselves after the programs in the main areas of Old Town Pasadena. I then decided to take a look at the efforts for the city of Glendale with regard to this type of venue in the summertime. And I saw that we have about 6 or so coming up at the Verdugo Park. Now, what they are doing is an incredibly energetic program. At Memorial Park alone, they'll have over 50 concerts during the summer. And starting from Wednesday evening, now Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, continually all the way through the end of the summer. One of the goals that I had mentioned earlier with regard to having a dynamic central urban park of a good size was primarily for that purpose, to bring in not just the population of Glendale, but also additional interested parties from the surrounding metropolitan area, so that we can segue those cultural activities into additional services for the local businesses. I think that Pasadena is giving us a model, and I encourage you to go visit those programs. In fact, one of the Armenian groups that was at the made a presentation 2 years ago at the Alex Theater during the Armenian Genocide commemoration will be playing there, I believe, this Saturday or Sunday. Nonetheless, I encourage you to go there and get a sense of how they are conducting this particular endeavor and how they are attracting the general public to make their whole redevelopment area truly dynamic. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Milan. All right, our next item, please.
Next item on
That was our only speaker, and I will now close oral communications.
On the business agenda at public hearing 6A is Director of Development Services regarding proposed sign variance for the Vaughn's store located at 311 West Los Feliz Road. At 6A1 is motion approving variance to allow 3 wall signs on the south elevation subject to findings and conditions. And I know a lot of people Los Feliz, but it is Los Feliz.
All right.
My lifetime. Not my lifetime.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Your presentation was muy bueno. All right, let's go to our Director of Development Services, Phil Anspan.
Didn't know you were.
I would like to introduce Annette Vartanian Jackson to give the report, brief report for you. And Artie, if you could put up on the screen their rendering.
There we go. Good afternoon, Agency Chair Draymond and members of the agency. The Vaughn store located at 311 West Los Feliz, and thank you for that, Artie. Everyone always makes fun of me for saying it the correct way. The Vaughn store is requesting a sign variance to allow for 3 signs, where 1 sign is allowed by the code. And this, what their proposal is actually part of a corporate rebranding program, and they are proposing to add a pharmacy sign as well as the signature cafe signage, just to let their customers know about the products and services that they offer, and to better serve their customers. Many people don't know that this Vaughn store does have a pharmacy and carries the signature cafe products. Again, staff has made the findings for this sign variance request, and we recommend approval. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them for you. The Vaughn sign is remaining. They are going to be fixing it because it is a little outdated, but the size and the look will remain the same. They're just going to be adding the 2 signs.
Mr. Chairman, just one other thing. The length of the building would allow a sign of about over 300 square feet. The Vaughn sign is about 150. The 2 signs add something far below what the code would allow if this were 1 sign. In addition, if these were 3 individual tenants, they would each be entitled to a sign. So it's not something that is grossly beyond what's already allowed in the code, just split into 3 signs.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Jackson. I have no speaker cards on this. Let me go directly to my colleagues if you have nothing else at the moment. All right. Ms. Reedman.
It's just a quick question.
And
So
then Ms. Weaver.
these new signs will replace the banners that are in the photographs? The banners would go away?
In the photograph, this is actually just a rendering. They currently don't have banners up there. Okay.
They do, according to the photographs. That's what I'm asking.
Oh, yes. Yes, that's exactly where the signs were going to go, and the permanent signage will replace that.
Right, so they're not going to have the banners and
No,
the
no,
signs.
no, they will not.
That was my only question.
Okay.
Mr. Weaver.
I'm just going to move 6A1.
All right. Let's. That would imply I should open it, by the way. So let me do that now. All right. Do any other colleagues have any input? All right. I will close the public hearing. I have no speaker cards on this. We have a motion
And a second.
and a second.
No, I'm saying I'll move 6A1 under the understanding, having lived in Glendale 70 years, Glendale natives always refer to it as Los Feliz, and I will continue to do so the rest of my life.
The original natives would beg to differ, but it's okay.
Where were you? You weren't there. Jeez. 70 years
I'm
ago,
just
you weren't
saying.
around.
Mr. Weaver, I thought what you were going to tell them is that how years ago this used to be the Super S. You remember the
Yeah.
Safeway Superstore. But that wasn't what you said. Instead, you were talking about
How you pronounce
Feliz. All right, very good. Mr. C.
Before that, actually, I think it was La Bodega at Los Feliz, right?
You could be right.
Well, their first Vons Club member was one of the Verdugo family, I think. So, all right.
The Vons came for Bonderes, and Dr. Bonderay, the brother of the owner of Bonderay, was the doctor who delivered my daughter and son back in the 70s, Dr. Bonderay,
You get a special.
out of St. Joe's Hospital.
Oh my goodness!
So the Bonderay family have been around here a long time.
All right, Mr. City Clerk, if you'd call.
Agency members, Friedman.
Yes.
Najarian.
Yes.
Quintero.
Yes.
Weaver.
Aye.
Chairman Draymond.
Yes. All right, our next item, please.
At 6B is another public hearing. It's Director of Development Services regarding proposed site variance for Panera Bread located at 300 North Grand Boulevard. At B1 is a motion approving a sign variance to install a sign larger than the maximum size permitted, subject to findings and conditions.
All right, let me go again to Phil Lansavant.
And I would like to introduce Project Manager Alan Castillo for this report.
Good afternoon, Agency Chair Draymond and members of the agency.
In December 2008, the agency approved a parking exception and design improvements for Panera Bread located at 300 North Brand. The approved design only introduced new paint and awnings. The design team continued to explore new windows to gain more light and visibility into the restaurant along the California Avenue elevation. However, such openings were not possible given the structural integrity of the existing load-bearing wall. The design team is now interested in installing an element traditionally called a mural on the California Avenue elevation. Because the proposed installation depicts the making, selling, and consumption of bread, it is considered an advertisement of a business, classifying it as a wall sign per the Glendale Municipal Code. It also exceeds the allowable sign area of 125 square feet, which is proposed at the mural at 700 square feet. The installation will potentially enhance the current blank wall along California Avenue as a more pedestrian-friendly transition from the public parking lot in the rear to Brand Boulevard. Here to answer any questions related to the proposed installation is Linda Lauterbach, the muralist for the project.
Hello.
Hi, everybody. I'm obviously the artist. Do you have any questions about this?
Well, if you could, first state your name for the record.
My name is Linda Lauterbach.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Weaver.
Okay, when you finish it, how is it sealed to prevent graffiti from being written over?
It is sealed with a sealant that is an anti-UV, so it will protect it from the sun. You can never protect paint completely from the sun. It will always fade eventually to some degree. But it is going to give it a UV coating and an anti-graffiti coating, so you can just wash it off.
So I want to make sure.
Yes.
Mr. Quintero.
Well, let me start by saying I'm very, very happy that Panera is moving along with the project. I keep looking over to see how much progress they've been making, and I think these murals are a very good idea. That's a long wall. However, I'd like the artist to maybe reconsider or think about the large hands. I guess I'm having a problem with those two large. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, sort of 7 depictions, and it seems to me those two large hands in some of those sections.
Those sections, sir, are supposed to be done in a sepia tone, so it's a monochromatic, like a sepia tone photograph. So they're almost as though they're older. Almost as the idea of it is that it's a mural of the baking of bread, and then that had been there a long time, and then these archways are to look realistic, as though they're actually there, painted in a trompe-l'oeil style. Trompe-l'oeil, which means fool the eye in French. And then the scenes beyond that, which will be in an old master's feel. I was hired by Panera to paint this because they wanted to make something that felt like a landmark that would decorate and enhance the building.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm still not persuaded. I mean, I think it's a great idea. Just as you drive down Brand, you're just going to, I think, focus on some very large hands on the side
Mr.
of
Quintero,
That's where
it's the size of the hands in the loaf of bread that is concerning you, not necessarily the sepia tone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, right. Just the size of the hands
in this.
loaf of bread. That's a good way to put it. But anyway, it's a beautiful concept, and the continuous mural, I think that's a great idea, and it's going to certainly tie into the rest of the building, which is looking just great. But I don't know if you could come up with some other concept other than those two hands, or at least one hand there on the left with the... I just think that's what people are going to sort of focus on rather than...
Right. It was about kneading the bread, and then the bread rising, and then the pinching of the bread, and then the stages of baking bread. Was what...
Wait, those are my
yeah.
only comments. You've obviously done some very nice work as we looked at some of your portfolio.
Thank you. It's funny that you'd mentioned the Vonderes. I did the Vonderes house. I've worked well. Yeah. In fact, I was on the Discovery Channel with Carolyn Vondere for that. So, yes, I've done work around town for 15 years, supporting my family doing murals.
Okay. Let me, just a bit of housekeeping. Let me close the We opened it. I thought we opened it. That was the last one. Well, we have no speakers, so we will open the public hearing and we will also close it. Mr. Weaver.
I don't know who answers this. You're on a narrow sidewalk to do your work, which is going to take some time. How will we keep the general public away during the time she's working on it? Will we cone it or rope it or something so that her work area stays protected?
I generally use caution tape, and I only need enough space for the ladder.
Okay, so staff will take care of that, or
We will work with traffic to,
I can just see people trying to go up and start touching it when you go home in the evening. We
Yeah.
don't need.
Well,
All right,
the mural can be
Mr. Najarian.
touched.
Well, I think we're fortunate that Panera Company has, rather than installing a generic street sign, has gone the extra length to bring some art into the downtown, and that's what I see as happening here. It is artwork, and I am surely lacking the credentials to criticize the design and the execution of the mural, especially with the hands. I think it does make sense to me from a logical standpoint that hands, I think they want to imply that this is a handmade, artisan bread establishment, and the bread is kneaded, the dough is kneaded by hand rather than a big Cuisinart. What do they call those things? A big Cuisinart.
Yeah, I think so.
Mixers.
I'm not a bread maker, so I don't know.
So I'm okay. I'm okay with the hands. I am relying entirely on your history of your projects that we have in the folder and the execution and the trompe l'oeil and everything else. So I'm okay with the size. I'm very happy with the size, and more than just okay. I'm very excited that we're able to bring this type of mural to downtown Glendale on Brand Boulevard, and I'm going to defer to your artistic expression for the hands.
Thank you.
Hey, let me just ask, are there any more questions specifically for the artist? Thank you. We'll go on with the discussion, but I don't want to just leave you standing there if there were no further
Yeah, well,
questions for you.
I do have a question. I'm
good.
sorry. Was the concept for the mural something that you came up with, or was it something that Panera Bread said, we'd like a mural about this?
It was a combination. They wanted a mural that would serve as a beautiful landmark that would improve, the quality of life in downtown, certainly. But yes, they wanted it to incorporate the history of bread.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. Ms. Friedman, anything else? I guess I would like to
Oh, okay, go ahead. I have a comment after.
weigh in, Mr. Weaver. Thank you. Well, this is always difficult when the artist is in the house, so to speak. Mayor Quintero, it's not the hands that bother me, it's the style that bothers me. And that's why we asked, or at least I asked last time, whether, who it was that was, I think it was Mr. Lansfame I'd asked, whether or not we could get something that was very representative of what this was actually going to look like. In other words, the question was this kind of a cartoonish version of the ultimate, or whether it was going to have a very realistic look, or whether this was sort of just a reduced version of what it will actually look like. And what we were told is, no, when we brought it back, we would have a representation of what it would actually look like. In other words, something that indicates not just the subject matter, but the actual style. So I'm assuming that is what this is.
I'll ask Emile to respond. I think what we tried to do is give you some representation of the artist's finished product. And she's certainly here. Emile, if you want to address, I think that's a schematic.
Yeah.
We tried to give you an idea of what the finished product would look like.
Mr. Chair, members of the agency, I'm quite aware of what you had in mind in terms of requesting the actuals.
Because that's exactly what we had last time.
Right. This was a sketch, a storyboard, let's say, and the artist's description of the work, I think, was trying to paint the image for you rather than we don't have specific images of small images of what it's going to look like once it's painted, to answer your question shortly. But the trompe-l'oeil and the realistic depiction versus the sepia tone, I think that we were hoping that would paint the picture for you.
Well, an example. You go down downtown L.A., you can stand up on the California Plaza and you can see trompe-l'oeil designs on some of the buildings. Some are fabulous. Some are god-awful. So, it's like saying it's going to be an impressionistic style. So, I guess what I'm saying is if this has a realistic look to it, I would probably be inclined to say, hey, I think this would be terrific. If it is sort of cartoonish looking like this, where it looks like illustrations from a children's story, which is what it really looks like to me, I would say they're great for illustrations for a children's book, like a fairy tale book that includes bread, I guess. But in terms of something that's going to take up the better part of a block in our downtown, I would want something a little different from this. And, at the risk of sounding like I don't mean to sound like an art critic or try, Mr. Najarian. I know what you're saying, but unfortunately, like it or not, part of our job here is to be miniature art critics, at least partly in terms of our constituents. If this is the style, I don't care for it. To take up that huge in space.
If I may, Mr. Chair, if you have perhaps we can allow the designer, the artist to...
If we had something that was an example of her work that was going to be representative of this specific project. Yes, there are examples in the packet, but I don't know, but they are a variety of types, and I don't know which one is meant to be typical of this particular project.
Perhaps the artist could explain which sample of her work would be reflective of what part of the mural.
I'd be happy to.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm
over there. Well, they have some work
Okay,
right
if you
there.
wanna-
What I would like to emphasize, if I could, is even on an 11 by 17 paper, it is very hard to show you something that's going to be 10 feet tall.
I don't think that's what I'm asking for.
It will never be in the same style. I want you to know that the hands will be painted in a photorealism style, so it's very realistic. So it's as though it was a sepia tone photograph.
Okay, so then you
And then the
understand
arches will look as though they're actually arches with stone coming out, with shadows below. So yes, it will be very realistic. Nothing cartoony anywhere about it. And the artist that's painting at the end, that's me. It'll look like I'm actually there.
Okay,
Forever.
Have you this particular photo? It's listed or drawing is listed as number B or letter B.
Letter B.
Yeah. Mr. Tadavosian, can you help find that? So what you're telling me is that is going to look more like a photograph than what it is here,
Are you
which
talking
is
about the hands or the...
no. This is item B, like boy.
Oh,
It's the woman
Yeah,
putting
let me-
bread in the oven or taking bread out of the oven.
hang on. I've got an actual... That is from an old master's painting, and I will show you what it will look like.
Okay,
Can I just pass it down?
sure.
It's this one right up here. These were sketches basically for placement. The only difference from that one is I put in a sort of a god light coming in, a beautiful light from a window. But that she's behind this. It's
So this is to be
in that style.
in this style, as realistic as that.
Yes.
Got it. That's what I'm after.
That's why I brought it.
That's what I'm after. This would be like a storyboard that we might see on in a read-through of a sitcom. is
Yeah,
what
this
I'm
was
saying.
basically for placement.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else?
Mr. Weaver, anything else?
Not directly, but we'll get to her.
Well, I'd like to look at
Oh,
it again.
she wants it back again. I'm an artist, too, though I haven't drawn in a number of years. So I know what you were doing. Those are just the sketches. And even when you sketch it on there, that's just the outline, whatever, and then you'll start to paint
I'm
again.
using a different medium than I would use, so it will look different when
So
I'm
I've
actually
seen
in paint.
those scenes by artists all over the world. where it looks like you're actually walking into it or looking at a view on the other side. It's a very unique kind of a drawing to do.
And I don't see that Glendale has any of that. I think it would be
We have none.
lovely.
Although in our chess park, that's what I prayed for on the walls, that we would do a community, let the youth get involved in the paint murals on the wall. Glendale, Glendale or whatever, but never transpired. Instead, we got a plant growing on the wall. So this has got a good location. It has a good visibility for a long distance because of the street layout and whatever. So you'll be able to see that a half a block down Brand Boulevard.
The whole idea that they had asked for me was to make it wholesome.
Okay.
Whole bread, huh?
Okay,
Well-
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Are there any questions for the artist? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Lansfin, as one voting member of this body, I would support this at this point, but I want to say this. It has nothing to do with not understanding the style, trompe-l'oeil, any of that. It has to do with there are good executions of any style and poor executions of any style. We're taking a portion of a block that is expansive, and other businesses look out at this. Other people are going to look out at this. So I want to make sure that what's going up here is this, not these things. Okay? So, based on what the artist is telling me, I'm going to support this. But would be very unhappy to find out I'm looking at this and end up with a sort of a children's book illustration version. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, what I would suggest is the maker of the motion may want to include that as a condition, and that will give us an evaluation for design review. When it's being painted, we'll go up and make sure that happens.
Mr.
Well,
Quintero.
for myself, I do think it's going to be an enhancement of that building, but I'm not going to vote for, like I said earlier, 2 giant hands and then some beautiful scenes and then 2 more giant hands. To me, it's a little too corporate. It's not truly artistic, and I guess Panera wants the public to understand that it's fresh bread, and in fact it is, and they have very wholesome products, but so what? I can't get past these giant hands there on the corner, so I'll vote against it.
Ms. Friedman.
Yeah, I just first want to clarify that this is different from an artist who's looking to just do a piece of public art, because this is something that's corporately themed. It's really a giant sign, and although I do think, looking at your work, which is wonderful, that it's going to be hopefully nicer than any sign that we have. I mean, there's an artistic interpretation of it, but it's so thematic because they're so, wanting to have it be a sign and to sort of say bread, 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 which is why it's getting the kind of scrutiny that it's getting, which I think is appropriate, because it is really somebody asking to do a sign that takes up an entire side of a building. So I'm glad that you asked those questions, and I'm glad to hear that it's going to be done very realistically. And I love this garage door with the little deer coming out of it. If we could do that on the side of the building, I would be really happy. But your work is really beautiful. I do wish that maybe they would reconsider having it be so thematic, so much about bread, just because, you can signal fresh and wholesome and appetizing without having panel after panel after panel representing a product, which is sort of what this is. So I have to say that the little tableaus that are the people baking, I think, are very nice, but to then go that extra step of putting bread and bread and bread on the rest of the building, I hate to say it, I kind of agree with Mr. Quintero that it's a bit much. That doesn't mean I'm going to, vote against it. Maybe it's just we can make that as a consideration for them, that maybe sometimes less is more. It seems like thinking that I'm looking at a Panera representative. I don't know if there's one here.
Mr. Lansford, let me suggest this. I would rather see us speak with the representatives of Panera and see if they can come up with something other than the framing this with the giant hands, perhaps. And if they're interested in doing that, they may see the votes just solidify up here. And
Can I?
Yeah, absolutely. Go right ahead.
Just that I don't want this to go away because I want to see a mural here by this artist. I think that it's wonderful. It's going to be a real benefit. I just want to be sure, and that's the reason I asked whether it was something you came up with on your own or whether it was something that they kind of came up with you. Because an artist who says this is, sort of my vision of what I want to put here maybe carries in my mind a little more weight than somebody saying, I'm a wonderful artist and this is what my commissioners have told me to paint. And it seems like there's maybe a little too much of that going on. I was trying to get a sense of that when I asked you that question.
You were quite right, Agency Member Friedman, about the reason this is getting a little more scrutiny than just a piece of public art, because it is an advertisement. And I'm also looking at the fact that this very thing will come back to this agency at some later time when another business says, that's pretty neat. Now we want to do scenes from American early history, and there's, Ben Franklin with a ham sandwich for a deli. So let's see if we can do that, Mr. Lansfame. Talk to them about those couple of panels, because right now what I'm seeing is not the consensus for this to move forward. I'm assuming that we can take a vote if...
Can I ask a question? Is it your sense that if we ask for this to kind of come back or to have a conversation, that they're just going to say, forget it, we're not going to do a mural? Because I don't want that. I really think that it's going to be wonderful and beautiful. I just want to be sure that, it's not something that, we start getting 100 emails from people saying, oh my God, we've got giant hands all over the side of a building.
Let me ask the artist.
Well, let me not, actually, at this
Okay.
point, if you don't mind. Mr. Lansford, the reason is I think we need something from Panera, who is paying for all of this, rather than our...
We will quickly get with Panera and find out those answers and work with the Panera and the artist to see if there's something other than hands and the bread in every panel that we can come up with that makes sense, that still incorporates the idea and the concept.
I think it's the hands that push it over the top. Not so much the bread. So
We'll get together with them quickly.
thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. City Attorney.
Yes, sir. What I believe I'm hearing is possible desire to continue this matter without further public notice.
Yes, and I was actually going to just turn to you and ask you what the best course would be. Thank you for...
Because it was a notice public hearing, it would be best to continue without further public notice to a date certain.
Okay. If we're going to continue this to a date certain, then...
I'm trying to figure date certain. July. I think July 7th is a fairly light calendar for the agency. That give you enough time? 2 weeks?
We have a number of joint meetings again. The lightest would be the 14th.
July 14th?
That's fine. I think that's fine.
I won't be in town. I'm pretty certain. That was my thought. They wanted it for their open.
All right, I can't take your testimony from out there, and I really want to hear from Panera, not the artist.
Okay.
On that corporate decision about whether the mural will go away. So let's hear from them. Yes.
Based on the comment from the floor, then we should probably bring it back next week.
Yeah, next week.
Because her comment is it'll go away if it can't make the open.
Right.
So
Okay.
we'll put it on next week.
What are next week?
All right.
Well, that's a motion to continue the matter without further public notice to
July 7th.
June 30th?
June 30, pardon me.
30.
June 30.
And Mr. Lansfame, the desire that I'm hearing is for this to go forward, and that with all haste. It's just some of our members have this question about this particular issue and its extreme commercial nature. So
We'll relay that message.
okay, and we know it's basically the end caps of this thing that are the problem.
Yes.
That's basically it.
Well, in between each of the arches where there's large hands and bread.
Well, I think the biggest overriding thing I'm hearing are the hands. The hands. Those are the two words we're focusing on with Panera. 3 words. The giant hands.
That's it.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, again, because we're looking at this, so this is a certain process formality, we do, because it was a public hearing, it would be best to entertain a motion to continue the matter without further public notice to June 30th. Get a second on that motion. You can do it by unanimous consent,
Yes.
but let's get that record.
Yeah.
So
we will do that.
moved.
And do we have a second?
Second.
We do. All right. Mr. Kasakian.
Agency members Friedman,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Quintero,
Yes.
Weaver.
I don't care. I guess so.
Yes. To continue to next
This
week.
artist has a reputation on the line. She's not going to damage it on that mural. Go ahead. Yes.
Chairman Draymond.
Yes. All right.
Okay.
All right. Thank
Moving
you.
on. At C is Director of Finance regarding proposed 2009-2010 Glendale Redevelopment Agency budget. At C1 is a resolution adopting budget.
Do you have any? It's not a public hearing.
Do we have any cards, sir? No. All right.
Mayor, can I move 6C1?
You certainly can. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. Is there any further discussion on the item? Hearing none. Mr. Kasakian, if you could call the roll.
Agency members Friedman,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Quintero,
Yes.
Weaver,
All right.
Chairman Draymond.
Yes. Item D, please.
Item D is Director of Development Services regarding proposed seizure of the city street maintenance funds, HUTA funds, and redevelopment funds by state government. At D1 is resolution authorizing city attorney to cooperate in litigation challenging the constitutionality of proposed seizure.
All right. Very good. Mr. Lensvin.
Mr. Chairman, members of the agency, recently the Legislative Budget Conference Committee approved 2 proposals to help close the gap on the state's budget problem. One of those would take almost $1.7 billion of city and county gas funds. The other would take over $1 billion of redevelopment agency funds. We are here predominantly on the redevelopment agency proposal. We believe that it is unconstitutional to take those funds that are supposed to go to the local entity, in this case the Glendale community, for redevelopment purposes. In addition to that, we have included the gas tax in the agency's action because this really is what maintains the streets through our over 1,000 acres located in our 2 project areas. The deterioration of public infrastructure is an element of blight, and it's not something that we would like to see. The agency would just be turning around and trying to fix that. So we are asking for your authorization today to authorize the city attorney to cooperate in any challenge to these 2 proposals. If there are any other questions,
We also have the resolution.
we have a resolution. You also have a resolution this evening on the city council agenda, one for the agency, one tonight for the city council, protecting that gas tax.
All right. Is there any discussion?
I'll move the item.
Second?
A motion and a second. Anything else from anyone else? All right. Mr. Kasakian.
Council, agency members Friedman,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Quintero,
Yes.
Weaver,
All right.
Chairman Draymond.
Yes.
Is there any agency member or staff comments?
Do we have any agency member or staff comments? Hearing none, let's move on. We have no new business. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
We're adjourned. Thank you.
Okay, I will call to order the joint public meeting of the Glendale City Council, the Glendale